Perfect. Well, thank you, Liv. I shall then take over from here. So welcome everybody who are here in person, and then also those who are viewing the recording later. We're excited to be engaging you all in this part of the European Youth Dialogue, the 9th cycle, if I remember correctly. And here what we have in front of us is the INGYO consultation for this specific cycle of the European Youth Dialogue. And the point and idea of this event is to give a little bit of an insight and tips and tricks and share the best learnings that us, the international non-governmental youth organizations, have been doing on the topics of sustainability and inclusion. And we have split this session in two. So first, we're going to go over the best practices for inclusivity. And then the second part will be going over the sustainability best practices. But before we get all of that started, with us today, we have Cristina Xenofondos. How do I pronounce your last name? I always get it wrong. I'm very sorry.
Xenofondos.
Yes. Who is one of the board members for the European Youth Forum and is in charge of the European Youth Dialogue in the European Youth Forum space. And she will now tell us a bit more about the process and about the EUYD, or the European Youth Dialogue overall. Thank you, Christina, for coming.
So first of all, I would like to say a huge thank you to all of you, the international non-governmental youth organizations, for being involved in the 9th cycle of the Youth Dialogue process, and to share with you that it's a huge privilege to work with you towards the process and to be here with you, even digitally today. I was about to... So usually when I start talking about the Youth Dialogue, I'm asking my audience first if they heard before about the process. And today I was planning to actually ask our audience a question, but allow me to make it to you because you are quite familiar with the process, and to ask you to share in the comments, in the chat. So if Youth Dialogue was an ice cream flavor, what would have been for you? So hello again, my name is Cristina Xenofondos. I'm a board member of the European Youth Forum. I have as a main portfolio the youth participation, and that's why I'm following also the process of the EU Youth Dialogue. And as you might know, the European Youth Forum, we are the biggest youth platform in the world. And we are an active and a crucial part also of the dialogue, of the EU Youth Dialogue process, which is at the same moment the biggest participatory mechanism in Europe. And it is the biggest mechanism that we have because it's allowing us, the young people from all over Europe, to contribute to policy development through consultations, through the dialogue, and through the co-creation. The unique characteristic about the Youth Dialogue process is that young people and decision makers sit at the same discussion table together and come up with solutions together. They participate together to events, to roundtable discussions, to the youth conferences on an equal footing, while having a structured dialogue, discussing the challenges and the ways to move forward. And now we are in the 9th cycle of the process, and the topics are very relevant also to our lives. The 9th cycle has as main topics the 2 youth goals, number 3, which is inclusive societies, and youth goal number 10, which is sustainable green Europe. Those 2 chosen European youth goals aim at achieving a society in which all young people are environmentally active, educated, and able to make a difference in their everyday lives, and at the same time, enabling and ensuring that the inclusion of all young people in society is there. So sustainable development and social inclusion go hand in hand, and if we do not enable and ensure the inclusion of all young people in society, then we cannot, of course, achieve a society in which all young people are environmentally active, educated, and able to make a difference in their everyday lives. So during this cycle, young people from all over Europe had the chance to identify the main focus points that they consider them to be relevant and related to the two topics. And that happened during the youth conference in France. Then they provided also feedback on best practices on how these topics are tackled during the July's youth conference, which took place in Prague, in Czech Republic, who has the presidency now of the Council of the European Union. And now during this event, we have also the great chance and the opportunity to express how Europe should further tackle those challenges related to the topics and what should be done, what is missing actually. Moreover, at the moment, we are on the consultations process and phase. And after the consultations are conducted, we will also have the chance to know more about the outcomes, and that will take place in October. As part of the Swedish presidency later, there will be also another momentum to check how those ideas and the recommendations have been taken into account, and if there are any initiatives that were inspired by the young people from all over Europe. And now when it comes to your role, to the role of the international non-governmental youth organizations, you have a crucial one to play when it comes especially to the implementation and the follow-up of the youth dialogue process on a European level. And that's why we have today the chance to showcase Europe, how Europe should face these challenges and how further on to keep the decision makers from the EU institutions accountable for keeping their promises and following through on what, as young people, we are asking for. I am wishing you all a fruitful event full of interactive dialogue, and I am looking forward to hear from you some hands-on ideas on what should be done in Europe to make it a better place for us, the young people of the present, and for the future generations. And of course, you can at any time reach out to me if you wish to find out more about the EU Youth Dialogue process. Thank you once again for having me, and cheers.
Thank you very much, Christiana. It was a great speech. And I think one thing you said, which also was very present in the conference in Prague, as well as in the conference in France, as well as in all the consultations and in the midterm report that we received a few weeks ago, is that all we're doing now is for the youth of now, for the youth of today. When at moments in speeches from different policymakers on different arenas, they always talk about the youth and of tomorrow and kind of the youth of the future and the future generations, when in fact we need to focus on what we have now in front of us and how can we develop that in order to make it a more fruitful future for all. So next up is the inclusivity part. And the organizations from the international non-governmental youth organizations that we'll be representing in this one will be the Youth of European Nationalities, or YEN as a short name, the Erasmus Student Network, ESN, as well as the Alliance of European Volunteering Service Organizations, and the European Union of Jewish Students. So we're going to kick off with the European Youth of European Nationalities, and hear their best practices and thoughts on inclusivity.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasper. And yes, my name is Christoph. I'm Vice President of the Youth of European Nationalities, and we are kind of advocating in the field of autochthonous, national, linguist, and ethnic minorities in Europe. And yeah, today I brought kind of one best practice from us, especially for minorities, because yeah, when we are speaking about marginalized or kind of communities or minorities, it's also always about a question about kind of platforms to kind of get involved with society. And at our last seminar, we had a working group which thought kind of about the process, kind of how to get involved, how to raise the voice or to amplify the voice of minority youth in Europe. And in this whole process, there was the idea to kind of create a podcast. And the topic of the podcast was kind of minority, my say. So, you know, a podcast is very easy to create. You know, it's kind of easy to find apps for free for recording. There are apps for which are easy to handle to cut things. So it's kind of a project where kind of young people can get involved and kind of be responsible for their project, because there's nothing kind of, because there are kind of not high thresholds to kind of express yourself or to speak about topics which are you interested in. And yeah, so we kind of as an organization helped with the funding and kind of to make a project plan. We have special toolkits for that, and then we gave over the whole project to our kind of network. And yeah, at the end we had kind of more kind of, we created the podcast completely done by our network. We had kind of the young people had no help kind of by technicians. They did everything by themselves. And at the end we had kind of podcasts with the topics about digitalization in minorities, especially here the Serbian minority in Germany. Or we had a Synthesa speaking about kind of creating a Facebook group which was called Sinti and Roma Pride. And we had also young politicians who spoke about kind of their advocacy for the LGBTQIA+ community. And yeah, you can find this podcast even on Spotify. And yeah, that's from my side. That was kind of my best practice, kind of to get people, young people involved with low thresholds in kind of political debates, or also kind of on topics which are very political, because you can express yourself and you can share within your network, within your community. And also kind of yeah, everyone listens to podcasts today, and it's not very hard to make one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christoph. A very good best practice. And I think a part of this, what makes it such a good best practice, is that when we're talking about, for example, marginalized youth groups and potential marginalized youth groups, the meaning of community is something that stands up even more. And we must be able to make sure that we provide an accessible platform for them to express their views and to be able to exchange in, for example, policy discussion. Hence, for example, a podcast is a very good option for that. So thank you very much, Christoph. Next up, we have Eva from the European Student Network. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you, Jasper. Hi, everyone. So my name is Eva, and I'm here on behalf of Erasmus Student Network. And I'm gonna give you, let's say, an idea of what we do within the network when it comes to social inclusion. And as we are one of the biggest student organizations in Europe, we do quite a lot on different levels. So basically, as our main goal, main target group is youth on mobility programs. We see social inclusion through mobility. So what we're trying to do through our work on local, national, international level is to kind of widen the participation of less advantaged groups and offer young people more opportunities to participate in international mobility. And we do that in many ways, depending on the level that we're talking about. So basically, we are trying to advocate. That's mostly on national and international levels, that we're trying to recommend certain changes in programs, such as Erasmus Plus program, for example, to our stakeholders, to our partners, whether it's EU institutions or our, other youth organizations, when it comes to, some kind of mobilities obstacles, such as, financial obstacles, social obstacles, and different barriers. We're also trying to promote mobility. We're trying to push forward the mobility for all, which is our global goal. We're also very active in this field, while we're trying to train our volunteers to be, to do the field work, to engage more local people, local communities in mobilities, to reach the less advantaged groups of people and to inform them, basically to spread the information. And we're trying to assess what our target groups need in order to participate in mobility programs, such as which different less advantaged groups we have, what would they need to participate, and as I said, just generally spread information of the programs and that they're available to more people than they were before. And to be more precise, so we take part, and we're kind of fundamental part of certain projects on social inclusion when it comes to mobility. So our big project at the moment is called Social Inclusion and Engagement in Mobility, which is a project that is trying to make international mobility opportunities more inclusive, and to enable students from all backgrounds to study, work, or volunteer abroad, which means that we have done a research to understand who the groups are, which groups are there that are less privileged, let's say, less advantaged, and then what they need to participate in mobility, how can we reach them, and we will also have a final conference on this project beginning of October. So whoever is interested can join and can apply until 15th of September, and we will share a toolkit that has been done within the project. Then we also have the Inclusive Mobility EU platform, which kind of shares all the information about inclusion, support services offered by higher education institutions, national agencies, and ministries to international students. So a lot of information can be found there. I can share links in the chat later on. And we have the peer learning activities and resources for social inclusion in mobility programs, which is trying to strengthen the exchange of information on the exchange of practices between European higher education area countries when it comes to inclusive mobility. But this is just, these are the projects that are dealt with, let's say, on international level, but it's very important to say that on local level, all of our activities, or most of them, we're trying to make them inclusive so that all the international students can join, so that local students can join as well, can be informed of their mobility opportunities so they can participate. And it's very important to us to have this connection between all the students, international students, and the local communities, so that we have this inclusion kind of very palpable in a sense. So these are, let's say, our best practices that are based on research, on projects, but in the field of mobility for the moment. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Eva. And also maybe to pinpoint, I think a few key points, what you mentioned there. One being the research. I think what makes policy work and advocacy and projects and networks and whatnot so powerful is able to really show the impact being created on a certain demographic or a certain group of people or individuals that need it. And if we don't have the data to back it up, we are in a very weak position to kind of work with these projects. So it's a very kind of cool thing to hear that you're really kind of doing the research and trying to, make sure that you have the right demographic for all the projects. And then maybe the other one is highlighting also the local impact and the meaningfulness of having also the local action supporting the international action, or the other way around as well, having the international action supporting the local action. That's a very important thing to have, kind of that sort of a top-down and down to top approach to coordinating these sorts of things on a larger scale. So yeah, thank you very much. And then the next one on inclusivity topic is the Alliance of European Volunteering Service Organizations.
Hello, my name is Simon. I made a nice little memo for me, but I haven't done the crash test, so I hope I'll manage within the time. So we are the Alliance of European Voluntary Service Organizations. We were created in '82, but we are basically part and historically part of the movement that advocated after the First and Second World War for civil service as an option next to military service, and all our projects and volunteer-based projects aim at peace building and intercultural learning rather than making war to each other. We are a network that is, we call it for its members, by its members, because it's a volunteer-based network. So we only have one staff and all the rest is managed by volunteers such as me. I'm the treasurer at the moment. We were a technical platform, but then we also became a political actively platform and network, and working on policy papers and working also on how to improve our own projects. We have short-term and long-term volunteer projects. We have trainings, a lot of things that you do also based on the E+ opportunities and on the European Solidarity Corps funding opportunities. Yeah, so the topics that we do is peace building, intercultural learning, social inclusion, gender equality, environmental sustainability, intergenerational dialogue and cooperation, and so on. We have at least 2 yearly meetings for all structurally involved volunteers, physical meetings. And the link that I wanted to make is that also in the report of the youth dialogue, there were 2 points that I kind of connected to, which was direct engagement of youth and experts on all levels in a structure, and that sustainable funding is day-to-day and punctual, project-based, so both. And I think that at least what we try to do in our network is to do this and try to include and make accessible every level of the structure and of the network and of our organizations, so that people can join and contribute, even if they are not experienced, between brackets, even if they are experts on a specific field, maybe not on other things. And then we try to fund ourselves our work meetings and try to offer learning opportunities and opportunities to work together inside of our network for the people and the volunteers who are active. One very short example is that we had a working group for a long time, which was called Access for All. And it was created by a few organizations who were working with marginalized youth and trying to include them in their projects, and trying to send them also on projects of other partners and members in other countries. And this was a good example of trying to have the people who work on this in their national reality, try to have young people, activists contribute to this working group, giving them the opportunity to meet sometimes in the year and work together. And this produced a policy paper, and it's made possible to raise awareness and give concrete tools and concrete good ideas and concrete good practices to other organizations who wanted to also work on this topic, but maybe didn't manage until then. And then based on this, we actually realized, as many of you, that to find volunteers, to attract volunteers, to be structurally involved for more than a few moments inside of our network, inside of our organizations, it's not easy. Finding young people to go on the board, to take responsibility and coordination positions, it's not easy for a lot of reasons that we all know probably. But we ask, okay, maybe we are not inclusive enough, maybe we are not accessible enough. And basically we want that anybody can join and be creative rather than conform to the existing, and join a group and do things as they do there and not having the space to innovate and to create. And so to make it very short, since 2014, we started a 10-year plan to restructure our network. We had a big sharing together on our different realities and what we think should be changed. And then we appointed people to work on that since a few years. But I would say that what I really liked in that is that we actually asked youth organizations to support the volunteers that they would send in this restructuring movement. And so it's actually really nice for me. For example, I came from a marginalized background, and it's quite empowering to be able to have access to the places where you can actually contribute and make structural changes, and have like a transparent learning opportunity and access for anybody who wants to come and go until the highest level and contribute to structural change. Of course, I'm not saying that we are doing it perfectly, but I think that we're trying to care about it, and I think this is already a good step to ensure that maybe we do not fall in certain realities that maybe we see at other political levels or at other structures and youth, how to say, yeah, I don't know. I think at the youth dialogue, we also saw that it's not always easy to have a transparent structure and to give opportunities to everybody. And I can just say in conclusion that I really think the first thing is to allow people on every level of an organization and ask them and include them, and ask them to contribute as a protagonist and not just as an external person that you ask sometimes for some feedback, but actually give them the platform, but also ask and ensure that they are properly supported by their youth organization, by whatever, but not leave them alone, no? And then give them the responsibility of having to be expert on everything and not having learning opportunities and opportunities to make mistakes and learn from them, and asking them directly to be perfect and give you the perfect solution. Thank you for listening. I hope I wasn't too long. And yeah, that's all for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Simon. Also very much important stuff said there. From this, I would maybe highlight also, not maybe on a contextual level, going to some certain project, but maybe on an organizational level, the ability to evolve from a purely sort of a project-based organization and network into an actual policy arena for these different things is something that can be achieved when different people from different backgrounds who share common worries for the future and for the present are put together and given the space to be influential in. So that's something that is very great to see coming out of these practices. Then the final inclusivity best practices session is delivered to us by, I think, Katerina, from the European Union of Jewish Students.
Yes, thank you very much, Jasper. It's a great pleasure to be in this panel with other amazing organizations that have done and are doing so much for inclusivity and sustainability in Europe for the youth in Europe. So the European Union of Jewish Students is an umbrella organization, peer-led, that represents 36 national Jewish students union around Europe, and we were founded in 1978. And so what's our main goal is to empower and give a voice and strengthen the opinions of young Jewish European students throughout all the continent. So let's say that the best practice that I decided to bring to this great conversation are our anti-Semitism trainings. For us, clearly one of our main let's say objectives for our organization is clearly to combat anti-Semitism, especially in the field where Jewish young people are more present, which are clearly campuses, youth organizations. So what were the let's say the purpose of such trainings was to go and be able to deliver and this training that were discussing not only the roots of anti-Semitism, their origins and the shape that it takes in our society, but how also to combat it. And for us, one of our main tools, it's clearly the IRA definition, which is the International Alliance for Holocaust Remembrance. And this definition is really one of the first a real tool that I've been able to use throughout the world to be able to actually recognize and put on paper what's anti-Semitism. So what we did was to spread this awareness on campuses and in youth organizations, especially after the great worrying increase of anti-Semitism throughout Europe in the last years, especially after the COVID pandemic. So we had the chance to go in organizations and attend their seminars, their congresses, and thanks to this 2-hour seminar, this 2-hour very short session, we had the chance, hopefully, to try to help them understand what maybe for some of us might seem very far, which is the phenomenon of anti-Semitism, why it's actually impacting many young Europeans throughout every day. And of course, the result, and let's say most of the time, our objective for this training was that youth organization and universities adopt the IRA definition. It's not a legal binding definition, but it's a working definition that can be very useful when it comes to when there are attacks that are, for example, denounced, and to be able to understand and distinguish what's anti-Semitism and what's not. So since 2020, the UGS office has been very committed to deliver these trainings. And for example, we had, among our concrete examples, we had the European Democratics and LIMEC and even the European Youth Forum per se, that we had the chance to deliver our seminars, and that resulted in this organization adopting the IRA definition, which was for us a great important sign that clearly there is a will to fight such really monstrous phenomenon. And of course, this is something that you don't, of course, if you are willing to have us coming to your organization, to your congresses or seminars, when you have chances to have many members all together, we are more than happy. So if you feel free to contact me, I will be more than happy to share all my contacts with you. But also, we also had the chance to produce, that we launched in 2020, a guide, a toolkit for how to support your Jewish students, that we presented to the European Commission in presence of the Vice President Skinas and Jourova, and which endorsed and support us in the drafting of this guide, which is for us a great pride, and that we hope it will be useful. You can find it on our website, and in case, again, you can feel free to reach out to me to be able to find it, because it is really for us a very important tool that we really hope that we will be able to actually spread among the different youth organizations, because sadly anti-Semitism is a phenomenon that is increasingly, especially online, we can find it every day more, especially in youth spaces, which is very much a pity. And so we hope to fight this together. So thank you very much for the time, and I hope I wasn't too long as well. And thank you again, Jasper, back to you.
Thank you very much, Katerina. And as all the previous speakers, also a very good points and very important points raised. And I think that the thing that you're doing very well is that one part of advocacy and moving the world forward is coming up with new ideas and new ways to bring the world forward. But as important and equally important, and in some cases even more important, for example, in the case of anti-Semitism, is to educate the world about this older phenomenon, which isn't okay and which must see a change in order for the world to move forward and for everybody to be able to have the same opportunities and the right opportunities to get into different spaces and to be able to participate in whatever activities they might seem fit. So it's a very good thing that this sort of education and these sorts of guides are made so that we can educate the general public for example, in the youth space on what is okay, what's not okay, and what we need to do together in order for everybody to feel better and to move forward. And this closes the inclusivity part of our little webinar. And next up, we have the sustainability part coming up. What we're going to do is that we are going to host a Q&A session at the end of this program. So all the people here online, think about questions from the sessions now, and also think about the questions moving forward in the sustainability section. And then in the end, we can go through all of your questions and then receive hopefully some good answers. So be creative with your questions. But off to sustainability, a very pressing and important topic also in the society today. We're seeing one of the largest humanitarian crises happening all the time for years now and for years to come, the climate crisis, and it's especially touching young people and young people's lives and young people's futures. And so it's important that we are also very active in that space in order for us to take action now, so that we can create structures that will help us deliver the best possible future for generations to come. And of course, like in many other topics and in many other fields, the INGYO and NGO sector is light years ahead of policymaking in certain areas. And we are going to be hearing a few good remarks and best practices from different organizations regarding sustainability. And we are going to kick it off with my other international counterpart on an organizational level. So WAGGGS, aka the World Association for Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. That you may take the floor.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Anna. I am going to present to you the sustainability guidelines that we've been working on in the Europe region of WAGGGS. Now, as Jasper just very kindly introduced us, that stands for the World Association of Girl Guides and Girl Scouts. And to give you a context of what we do is we want to see an equal world and young women to develop their fullest potential. So structurally wise, we have, and this will be relevant to what we've been working on, my internet connection is telling me I'm unstable, so Margaret, if you have to interrupt. We have different organisations coming from different countries, much like the World Organisational Scout Movement, of which Jasper is representing. So we have different organisations who we then help to advise and help to guide in how they work. So that's very much what our position is. So we have 5 regions, which those countries are split into, and the region we are a part of, obviously, is Europe. So for the past 3 years, we have been working on sustainability in one of our working groups, because it is obviously a priority, just like Jasper said, for both our young people and therefore as a youth-led organisation, that we're reflecting the values that our young people stand for. And this is a lovely group photo. I'm going to hand you over to Margaret.
Yes, perfect, everyone. Hi, my name is Margaret, and I have been one of the about 20 young people who have been, through the last 3 years, been working on sustainability within the Europe region of WAGGGS. And we have 3 different main topics that we've been working on, which is a statement, a concept paper, which is what you can see on your right side. We've been doing a bunch of different trainings throughout the period and to reach as many member organizations as possible. And the main highlight that we want to introduce for you today as a best practice is sustainability guidelines that is seeking to help encourage our member organizations to work on a strategic level on sustainability. Next slide, please. Yes, on global level, as Anna mentioned just before, we have both been supporting our member organizations in Europe in some of the documents that we have been published on global level, which is both a greener that toolkit for making sure that all the events that we do throughout the world are as sustainable as possible. And both on European level and on world level, we've been producing position statements as in how it is that we're working on sustainability. But for the main thing that we want to share with you today is sustainability guidelines as a document that is very hopefully soon to be published and finished. But the aim is that we want to help our member organizations reflect on the different practices, but also the priorities that they need to improve to work much more on sustainability throughout all that we do within the actions of our member organizations. And with this, we have created a set of guidelines where we have 11 different topics that we have set a structure for, is to tell what the aim of the specific guideline is, but also in which way that the member organization could incorporate it within their work, but also giving them guidelines as to how that can be manageable. And as a very nice side bonus, we have been seeking a bunch of best practices throughout the different countries and our member organizations to show our different member organizations how other countries have been working on these different topics for the guidelines.
And so to conclude, what we've been talking about on the screen, what I'm sharing now is the different contents of the guidelines. I won't read them all out, you can read them, but just to emphasize what Margaret said, that the point of these guidelines is not necessarily just for educational opportunities, which is the top of strategic, both for our young members and the adults delivering education to our young people, as we're primarily a non-formal educational organisation, but also that we need to look at how we work as organisations to make sure that we have the desired impact and our actions copy our words, basically, which is something that in sustainability at the moment sometimes we don't necessarily match up on. Thank you very much, and look forward to hearing your questions afterwards.
Thank you very much, Anna and Margaret. Very good session indeed. And I think also here worth of highlighting is the kind of from, not coming up with something and then enforcing it on the local level, but on the other hand, gathering the input of what works and what doesn't from the local level, creating that into an actionable format also on an international level, and then working from that. And that creates or not just creates, but creates and delivers more impact and sense of belonging to the MOs and to the local operatives, but also gives you a way much more strong foothold to stand on when going into different policy or advocacy spaces, because you can say that, this isn't just something we came up, this is something that our European member organizations locally think is very good and is working and what needs to be done. So yes, very, very good indeed. And next we have the Rural Youth of Europe, or RYE, and Martin. Hello and welcome.
Yeah, hi. I'm from Rural Youth Europe. First of all, I would like to introduce a little bit of the organization. So we're an umbrella organization connecting rural youth, 4-H and young farmers clubs from 20 organizations in 14 countries all over Europe. And our main work is event-based. And there we try to exchange knowledge and emphasize exchanging knowledge, experiences and practices among the member organizations, but also to build some competences for all the individuals that are participating in the events. Our biggest annual activity is the European Rally, and this year it was held in Germany on the topic dialogue on sustainability, and that's why we would like to focus here on the outcomes of this event. So if you later have questions, there are also some others from the organizing team in this call. I think that will help. The main findings from the event were that to achieve sustainability with your organization, you first need to work a little bit on your individuals. So we pointed out 5 steps. The first 3 are on the individual. So first is to stay informed and inform yourself if you don't know about something. Actively inform yourself and don't wait for information to come in. Second is to reflect your own habits. So be honest with yourself and see what you're doing, not only in a private, but also in the public or in the workplace. And the third one is to be open for change. So actively search for to get out of your comfort zone. The fourth thing then is to get involved in different projects around, search for it, be curious what others do for sustainability, and also, if it's possible, start your own actions. And as we worked a lot on dialogue, the main thing that we've noticed during the event is that you have yourself the best impact on your local community. So get involved in your community, yeah, be the own change maker within your surroundings and with your friends, family, within your local club, and make a positive impact there. That's the most successful way. Other than that, we also had a big part of best practice sharing among the organizations. And as our organizations are reaching out to rural youth and rural areas and everyone else who's doing that, yeah, a very successful one is to promoting to buy local products, use local services, and when it comes to food, also buy seasonal food. So some impacts that have is that you create jobs in the local area, in the rural areas. There is less transport for all the products. Most of the time also less packaging. We have, for example, when it comes to food, smaller scale farms with good conditions, good food quality, much more transparency as the consumers can get in touch with the producers. And overall, it also supports the local infrastructure and the attractiveness and image of rural areas. So this leads to more stability and also works good against the rural flight. Then to be more specific, some of our organizations shared what they are especially working on. So they held competitions, for example, with recipes, including local products. They have held lotteries where they started with some local product goodies to make people, to let people know what is there around my neighborhood, around our country, that is a local product I maybe already know from the supermarket. And then with a lottery, you always reach some more people as well, just because they are all curious to win. Others had handed out info packages to all of their members, especially when there are large organizations. That's also a powerful tool, and did some campaigning. Others held events, just like on cooking or on what specific food or products they have in the regions, or annual projects that combined all of these actions I said before. And also one of our member organizations has opened a cooking school for kids, where they do this now on a very regular basis, and teach kids on a very young age already what products are there, where do they come from, and how to best use them in a sustainable way. Yeah, I think that's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Martin, and Rural Youth Europe. I think this also goes to show that when we're talking about sustainability, we must remain a broad angle of thinking. We cannot just think about, this thing, or think automatically, for example, farming or production bad. We must think about, okay, these are still vital things for our society, but we must find a way to work around this and work together with them in order to create a more sustainable future. So I think the very important lessons there, and also especially what you mentioned about starting to teach it at a young age, you know, to plant those seeds into young people's minds when they are 6, 7 years old, all the way growing up in their different activities when they're teenagers and young adults, and then at some point adults. So yeah, thank you very much. And next up, we have Julian from AG, or the European Students' Union, to tell a bit more about their best practices on sustainability. Julian, take it away.
Yes, hi, thank you for having me. I'm Julian. I'm coordinating the Sustainability Committee of AG Europe, also known as European Students Forum, not Union. It's all right. So first, I'll quickly introduce who we are. So AG strives for a democratic, diverse, and borderless Europe that is socially, economically, and politically integrated. And we value the participation of young people in Europe's construction and development. And we have local branches in about 150 student cities in Europe. And besides that, we have a local board based in Brussels with many supporting bodies on the European level, such as committees and working groups that carry out our common thematic work. So I'll tell you a little bit about how AGA's sustainability journey went in the recent couple of years, and maybe share some best practices, and maybe you can learn about mainstreaming sustainability a bit more in your organization that way as well. So sustainability always had a place in AGA in the past decades, but usually this happened in the background and only by a small group of enthusiastic members. But in recent years, of course, in light of the current climate crisis, the topic gained a lot more momentum in the organization. And this kind of peaked in 2019 when members of an interest group in AGA called the Society and Environment Interest Group thought that this should be more than just an interest group. We should mainstream sustainability in the organization and bring it into the spotlight. And they had timed this very well, this move, because in 2019, we were starting to work on the new strategic plan for the next 3 years of the organization. So they could kind of jump into that boat of creating the new strategic focus of the organization and actually make sure that environmental sustainability was part of the improvements that we wanted to make in the organization, as well as part of the thematic kind of external work that we wanted to do. So they timed that very well. And during the event where we drafted the new strategic plan, they made sure that everyone was on board, and everyone was, because of course, you find this a very important topic. But they thought having these plans in our strategic plan is not enough. We need to make sure that all of our members, not only those on the European level in those bodies, are involved. So what they did is at the next General Assembly, where members from all our local branches come together, they created, or they published the Sustainability Manifesto, in which we as members of a youth organization basically state explicitly that we will commit to incorporating the 3 pillars of sustainability into everything we do. And of course, the statement was a bit broader than that, also calling for action from society and from policymakers. But it was a very powerful statement. And of course, it was accepted by everyone because, well, almost everyone, because everyone felt the importance of this. So not just having the plan, but also having the statement, having someone who brings it at the right time in the organization. I think that was done very well and can be very important in timing your plans, let's say, making sure it ties into the kind of strategic, formal processes of your organization. Also in that year, the Sustainability Committee of our organization was established to make sure that actually this work was going to be carried out by someone and that somebody was responsible for this. So we had a dedicated body now working on this instead of just some random interested members. So what did we as a committee do in the past few years? Well, first of all, we started kind of figuring out what do we need to mainstream sustainability. So we need the knowledge, of course, we need to train people, we need awareness, motivation. So we started creating toolkits. First, very easy tools, such as a recipe booklet for vegetarian recipes for events. But then we started creating more and more thorough guidelines. For example, a guideline for organizing sustainable events, a guide for how you can incorporate environmental sustainability in your local branch, so in your city, not just events, but also other things like sponsorships or your office or many other matters that can be improved. And we started creating a tool where people could self-assess the sustainability of their events. So not just thinking, what can I do, but also how well did I do it and what other things can I do? And as a committee, we try to raise awareness for these tools. We try to have meetings with those organizing our biggest events to make sure that they understand the tools, understand what they can do, and we can help them out. But also we try to, after the event has been organized, evaluate with the organizers what barriers they encountered when implementing sustainability and what went well, of course. So documenting these evaluations, these barriers that people encounter are very important, we think, because motivation alone is not enough to make your organization more sustainable. You need to also remove barriers, because often there's so many other worries from members, like I can't afford a fee, or I don't have time to organize this, just the basic things. So removing those barriers is very important when you want to work on sustainability as well. So that's been, I think, our main challenge, making sure that everyone has the time, the awareness, and the knowledge, and the motivation to implement sustainability. And that's what we as a dedicated body try to foster in our members. So I think having a dedicated body is essential in your organization for mainstreaming sustainability, but it's not enough, because in the end, you will need your members and those organizing your events to also be able to implement it, because they are the ones organizing those events. If I have time, I have half a minute for highlighting a recent project. So we have summer exchanges called Summer Universities, and we had a funded project where we could actually train people to advocate for sustainability and inclusivity towards their local and regional levels. So that's a recent, more thematic event that our organization organized. So I think that's my time. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Julian. And also, I think what you said and what almost everybody so far, both in the inclusivity, but also in the sustainability section, have highlighted, one of the main things is to make sure that people are aware. And that goes into something that has been talked for a long time, which is the quality of information when we're talking about information being passed on to young people, to educate them and to provide them content. And I think it's great to see that we have this many dedicated organizations and bodies, networks and associations and whatnot, kind of making sure that all the information that is passed along is being researched, it's being gathered properly, is being passed through a bit of skepticism, and when everybody is happy with it, it's being passed on, and it's open for criticism and development based on the reaction from, for example, demographics it's being passed on to. So I think that is excellent. The last speaker of this evening is me, and I will be talking now on behalf of WASM, or the World Organization of the Scout Movement. We are the other international central scouting organization, along with WAGGGS. We were founded, I think, in 1920 or 21. I always get the two mixed up, because WAGGGS was founded on one and WASM was founded on one. But what we do is we provide support, guidance, and structure to our member organizations. We have some 170 member organizations, national member organizations reaching out around the world. And we have 6 different geographical regions that form the actual WASM. I'm, of course, here representing the European region of WASM. And in total, there is currently a bit over 57 million scouts under the WASM belt. And a part of being this big of an organization is also a big responsibility to make sure that we represent and we develop things in the right direction. And talking about sustainability, one thing that is very relevant and has been for a few years now is the Sustainable Development Goals set by the United Nations, or adopted and set by the United Nations. And some years ago, we had an idea that, hey, we're sure that many scouts around the world on a local level are doing things around this, but we have absolutely no way of monitoring it. We have absolutely no way of reporting it, and we have absolutely no way to gather and share the intelligence and the input from these projects. So what we created was Scouts for SDGs platform that allows any local group or a national group or a district group all over the world to log in to the portal and to log their service hours based on a service project based on a sustainable development goal focused project. And so far, in a bit over 3 years, we have been able to gather an astounding 2.7 billion service hours with over 110,000 participants. And the total amount of projects created for the, 111 million participants. And the total amount of projects that have been registered to the platform is almost 16.5 million. And this has been a way for us to showcase the impact of creating local change on sustainability, but also to highlight the willingness and the will level of operatives on all different levels, on a regional, world level, local level, national level, to work on the same ideas and on the same shared goals. And this is a way for us to really give support and give clarity to everyone who asks it from us regarding sustainability, and say, okay, these are the things that we have seen working, these are the things that are happening currently, and these are the main things that we have been working around this. Of course, with all great things, nothing that we have done could not have been achieved alone. We have many different partners on the world level, but also on a regional and a national level. One of the largest organization, or one of the larger organizations that have been supporting us on all of these different levels has, for example, been WWF, who have brought support from the world level all the way to the local municipality level on topics surrounding sustainable development goals and creating projects and creating impact on this. And this has been a project that has generated a lot of pride and happiness to everybody who's been a part of it. It has created actual change in the societies around us in a humongous way. And this is something that we are most determined to see and carry through and make sure that it keeps on going and it keeps on thriving also for the years to come, in order for us to have a better society in the end. And that is maybe my best practice. So kind of as an ending statement, I would say that here, what we have harnessed is the power of a platform. WASM as itself is already a platform, but we are such a big platform that it's hard to really kind of find your place if you're focused on one specific thing. So we created an online platform where you're able to go, see information, gather information, learn new things, and learn about these projects, as well as take inspiration and hopefully add your own on top of the other existing ones in order to create that impact and increase that impact even more. So yeah, the meaning of platform in this and in many other cases is huge. And I hope that we all harness it as well as possible in order to create a better world. Perfect. Next up, we are going to have time still for maybe 1 or 2 questions that we might have. And then on the other hand, if there is no direct questions coming from the participants now, when we share this recording on the Facebook page, we will link the websites of all the organizations that have delivered a speech here. And from those websites, you can find contact details. Sorry, my voice is starting to go a little bit. You can find contact details to those organizations to propose your questions or to ask further details on something that has been shared here today. Because we, as I said in the beginning, the European Youth Dialogue isn't just a one-time thing, it's an ongoing process. And all of these instances and best practices that have been shared here today are also an ongoing process. So we're developing this as we go. And of course, I'm sure we all welcome the input of anyone who sees something that they want to comment or add or give an improvement suggestion on these topics. So I will open the floor now. If you have any questions for the people who are here, from the people who are here, give them now, or otherwise we shall then conclude this event. Yes, Julian, you can open your mic and ask.
Yes. So as someone trying to implement sustainability in our organization, one of the main struggles we have, which I'm wondering how you guys are tackling it, and girls, is how do you approach measuring sustainability? So efforts towards sustainability or your progress towards sustainability in your organization. So what we find is that members don't really have the time or the motivation to report on this. So data on these efforts is really scarce. So how do you tackle this?
I am not sure I have. Oh, sorry, Jasper.
No, go right ahead.
Thank you. I'm not sure I have maybe a traditional solution, but I think we, for instance, when we were trying to gather best practices as a way of collecting data, we really struggled because everyone doesn't want to fill out a survey anymore. They don't have the time, like you said, or the energy. So what we had was we hosted a webinar training in which we had groups discuss what they were doing in their organizations, and from that we were able to gather data in a different way, in a way that was kind of mutually beneficial for the organizations to learn from each other, and also they knew that we were going to then take some of their examples and maybe later get in touch and say, can you give us some more information? So I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. Do we have other questions?
I have a bit of a specific question for RY. I really love the sound of this goodie bag that you set up with local good produce. That's what I'm looking for. How did you go about that, and how did you make it accessible? I suppose we're linking to inclusion. How did you make sure it reached those who you wanted it to reach?
So it was a campaign from one of our member organizations in South Tyrol, and they asked people from their network for contributions. So there were some producers that said, yeah, we can give you some examples of our products, kind of, and then they have a big database of all their members, kind of, and send it around, but with a little twist. So not every member, but every club got one bag, and then you were able to sign up, and into a little lottery. You were also able to get one of them, and then you were asked also to present them how you like ate the things or used the things.
Cool, thank you.
Perfect. And maybe with this question and a very good answer. Simon, do you want to unmute yourself and say the same thing?
No, I just wrote an answer to Julian.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Maybe with this, we could conclude this webinar and this part of the dialogue. I would like to thank, first of all, Christiana for taking the time and joining us today to inform a bit more about the cycle and about what is the European Youth Dialogue and why I've just part in it. And then I would like to also thank, let's see if I can remember everything, WAGGGS, RAI, GEN, AG, WASM, Alliance, the European Union of Jewish Students, and am I forgetting something? European Erasmus Network, that one, for taking part in this. You did amazing job, and you have been doing an amazing job because you have been able to present such good case examples on these topics. And I hope that I will see all of you magnificent people here on my screen now. Later on, latest in Sweden for the next European Youth Conference. But I also hope to anybody who's viewing this recording of this session that you get inspired on these topics and you find it in yourself to join us in this joint work on these topics, and maybe even we will see you as a youth delegate in the next European Youth Conference. But with this, maybe Liv, our magnificent IT wizard, can end the recording, and I would like to say thank you very much, everybody.